Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. If you've listened to the previous 18, you'll know 19 that I am Serge, you are.
I'm James.
And thank you for sticking with us through the whole of Correspondent week. Like I said just before we started recording, save the best till last. Introduce our guest, James.
We will start with South London's second biggest football club. Let me introduce you to our Crystal Palace correspondent, Migtavius. I just can't get the Arsenal digs in enough.
I mean, even if that's a dig on Arsenal, it's a bit harsh on us as well, isn't it?
Yeah, probably, yeah. How are you, mate? You well?
Yeah, not too bad. A bit warm today. Sun's come back out now. So
this is one where we have to stick the timestamp in. You can probably guess. We are pre-recording this on Friday, which is in advance of Crystal Palace's last pre-season friendly, which is going to unfortunately give us a lot of information in terms of potential starting lineup that we can't cover. And one of the reasons Palace is particularly difficult is because you've had half the team here in the UK and you've had the other half in Australia. Big, what's that been like? It's a bit weird.
It's kind of been a bit mixed. I was a bit sort of odd at the start because I felt a little bit sorry for all the people who spent like thousands of pounds to go out to Australia and they didn't get to see players like Zaha and stuff like that.
And the people out there, of course, as well.
Yeah, exactly. They've been waiting years to see the mighty Palace come back down under. But it also had that sort of thing where the whole squad got plenty of minutes during pre-season as well. And you had players, the younger ones coming through like Plange and stuff like that, who may not have got that many minutes if we had sent the whole squad to Australia or kept them all here. So it's almost, although it's kind of been split and you don't really know what's going to happen when they all come back together, how he's going to fit them all in, it has probably benefited more players by giving them more time to play.
Yeah, it's really odd one though. So for those who don't know, there was a lot of Palace players that were refused travel, presumably some because of COVID vaccination status, which has meant that Palace's tour in Australia, which was meant to be a very big deal to the club, kind of whimpered really because you had the best player back here, obviously, in Zaha, and he wasn't the only one who didn't go. You had Mark Gay, who's obviously playing for England now and stuff, is also back here. So you've had this split, and it makes it really difficult for us to know, actually, what is Patrick Vieira thinking? I mean, you take the example of Luke Plange, and we might as well kind of start with him because he's getting spoken about a lot at the moment. Arsenal's Luke Plange, I noticed when I opened him up on the Fantasy Premier League website. Let's get him in a Palace shirt, please, lads. 4.5 million forward. Really impressed in pre-season. Sell it, Mig.
Oh, you want people to buy him?
Do you want people to buy him?
I want people to buy him just because I probably won't. But the
that's the ultimate seal of approval. Do as I say, not as I do.
Exactly.
I mean, it was a similar thing to last season. I think it was where Rob Street done quite well in pre-season. He was a 4.5 forward, and it's like, oh, is he going to get some minutes behind Mateta and Benteke? But I mean, Plange is only 19 years old. He's just come in. I don't think he's going out on loan. I think he wants to keep him close, but I can probably see him being more of a bench player coming on. It would take a lot for him to immediately go ahead of the likes of Edouard and Mateta. I think Benteke is probably about third choice now, but to get ahead of those two, because we only play with one striker at a time anyway.
And Edouard, right?
Yeah, Edouard and Mateta. I think. Even though, sorry, Eddie. But I think it'd be very hard pressed to get ahead of them, at least in the opening months. I mean, obviously, if he sees stuff in training, I mean, he scored a hat-trick in pre-season. A couple of those were sort of laid onto him by Benteke. So you're kind of like, oh, are they going to be a bit of a partnership? But then it was sort of Ipswich at a training ground. So I'm not really sure how much you can really read into that. But obviously, if he does great, then wonderful. But I don't really see it as much of a maybe getting some minutes towards the end of a game sort of thing.
Yeah, I think one case to have him is because of Palace's fixtures, which we'll talk about. You're probably not starting with 3 Palace players, therefore you're not going to block yourself. There's a case to be made for that. But what I keep seeing with him is, I think his best 4.5 is going to get minutes. Now, we're having this conversation, and based on where we're at yesterday against Montpellier, we may look quite stupid if he started and he scored twice and stuff. So
Yeah.
I'm taking a little bit of a gamble here. But to give you an example of exactly what we're talking about and why this is a difficult read, last Saturday at 11 o'clock in the morning, Crystal Palace played Leeds in Australia with half their team. And then 4 hours later, the other half of the team played Queen's Park Rangers in London. And Plange, this is what I think has happened. People looking at going, oh my God, Plange played with Benteke and Zaha. And he's continuing to start. Of course he's continuing to start. All the other forwards are in Australia. You got Edouard, Mateta, and Jordan Ayew started the game in Australia, which you got the other three have started in at QPR. So he's probably at best fourth choice forward, in my opinion, at the moment.
In out and out strikers,
subject to someone might leave. And as you already said, he might even just play Zaha there as well anyway. So I think you can play in wide areas as well. I must profess, I don't know a lot about the player.
Yeah, I think he played more sort of on the right against the Ipswich.
It just speaks to me that he's playing a lot, like a lot of other kids' names that we don't know here, because the squad has been completely split in half, basically.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. If we had been all together in Australia, he probably wouldn't have got that many minutes and no one would be talking about it.
He may not have even gone to Australia.
I mean, we did just bring him in January, so he is sort of more of a first squad player rather than like an academy kid who we've had to sort of bring in to sort of fill out our pre-season. So he may have just gone for the travel and just for the sort of experience of the Premier League coaching, training, setup sort of thing.
I'm just thinking about this back in my mind. No, he wasn't in Australia. He's in London, isn't he?
Yes.
He was with the English group. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe he isn't vaccinated either. But then there's that as well. I mean, do we even know that he was one of the first choice kids? Because presumably the first choice kids went out to Australia, I'm guessing.
I would assume so, unless he had an injury. Maybe he hasn't got a passport. I mean, he's quite young. Brexit.
No, it's very true. But I mean, we've heard a few like Raksaki. He's a player who's been mentioned quite a bit. He was obviously out there as well. And your boy who you bought from Derby, Malcolm Ebiowei, who I have heard really good things about. I know Tottenham were interested in him as well. He's probably more likely to be part of the first team squad on match day than Plange, in my opinion. And he's actually, if you're looking for a 4.5 youngster to watch, I'd suggest he's probably one early on. But also, everyone's kind of fit in the attacking areas at the moment. Unfortunately, these kids might be great. I don't think they're FPL options at the start.
No, I shouldn't imagine so. I did have Ebiowei as more of a, if you're looking at budget players from Palace, he was probably one of the two standout ones I'd probably go for, because I can see him when he's playing on the right wing. Obviously, Elise is injured at the moment, so you kind of got Jordan Ayew, so he may sort of be the sub to come on for Jordan Ayew, and then maybe force a start until Elise is back fighting for contention. I mean, he's played well out in Australia. He's very attacking, very sort of young Zaha-esque about taking players on and beating them. So he may sort of come quite quickly into the starting 11, especially if maybe something happened yesterday. Maybe someone's got an injury. I don't know. But
there's always this.
I think he's got more of a chance than Plange. Plange, mate. I mean, there's still quite a few days of the transfer window. So I know Raksaki has got about a list of three teams that he's picking to go on loan to. So maybe even Plange will get a loan move to give him some more first team experience before sort of proper joining the first team next season.
Like I said, if Plange has scored twice against Montpellier and you listen to this game, what are you talking about, James? Listen, I'll reconfirm, put my hands up and apologise tomorrow, and we'll talk about him as a proper serious asset. But this is not the case. I don't think.
No.
How are you feeling generally, Mig, going into this season? It was a good first season for Patrick Vieira, wasn't it?
Yeah, I've been a lot more optimistic about this season. Last season was a bit sort of feeling optimistic, but having a big doubt onto whether he'll settle in quickly, how the players will get on with him, who's he bringing in. But I think having seen him last season and how the squad's going, and then continued with some of our purchases this summer, the optimism is growing for maybe a top half finish.
Yeah, I mean, think back to this time last year. and obviously there's a lot of outsiders were writing you off.
Oh yeah, he was odds-on favourite to be sat first.
Well, it had taken a while to get Vieira in. Me and Suj did a pod on this as well at the time. Vieira knew that he wasn't first choice, but it was a great opportunity for him, and it fell right for the club. Eventually, you could have ended up with Nuno, mate.
Yeah,
you'd be sitting there crying through your fingers every week, bored shitless. But he's a great fit. He's done really well. He's really impressed everyone in terms of the way he's carried himself this year. Like many who go into Palace, quite happy to give youth a chance to flip it the other way. These kids will get an opportunity if they're good. And I don't think top half is definitely not beyond you. There isn't anybody would think you're in trouble this year. No way.
No, it's probably one of the first seasons where I've actually thought we shouldn't really be in any danger of going down, which is probably the first hurdle that comes up when we lose the first like 5 games or something and we're in a fight for relegation. But I don't think we'll be in trouble this season. Hopefully just more than 12th, you know.
No. The challenge is that you've lost what would be argued as your best player last season. He's only on loan with you in Conor Gallagher, and he does get about the pitch, and he's a man and a half sometimes, isn't he, with the work rate and what he gives to the team. What do you think Vieira's got up his sleeve as a replacement plan for Gallagher?
Well, we spent a lot of the summer trying to get Czech Decore's signature across the line, and thankfully done it. I didn't know anything about him before. You know, all the hype on Twitter, you usually see, we're mentioned with someone, and it's like, just get him signed. But I haven't seen him in a couple of the pre-seasons. He's very similar. He's all of that sort of almost a hybrid between MacArthur and Kouyaté. He's got the strength. He's moving around. He's got technical abilities. He's got some through passes through. So I'm hoping sort of a mix between having him as more of an assurance and then maybe having someone like an Eze playing more centrally, or even just having someone alongside him like MacArthur or Hughes who can sort of help out Decore in that sort of central area. Because I'm assuming he'll still be going with the whole 3-4-3-3.
Yeah, I'm in complete agreement with what you said there, Mick. The Decore is I mean, just kind of has nothing like Gallagher really. From what I've read, he's very much going to be the sitter of the midfield 3, which I think was beginning to become a problem position for you, which he fixes. Suj knows I've long felt that Eze will end up in a central position. And that's how I see it evolve. It might not be the way it starts, but that's how I see it evolving actually.
Yeah, I mean, Eze just has more freedom to play when he's quite centrally. He does, having someone like Wilf and Elise out on the wings that can be more sort of disciplined out there and get the crosses and stuff, and just having him sort of roaming in the middle with a couple of insurances behind him, I think is probably what would be best for Eze as a player. It's just how you fit them all in, really, especially with Ebioe coming in. And
I think Eze was used very sparingly in the sense that I thought when he was used last season, obviously he came back from a serious injury, he was playing further forward than I'd expected quite a lot. And I think part of that was to ease him back in. And I think probably it's him that will probably take on the mantle of Gallagher, which has its challenges because he's a very different player. Eze is better technically in terms of his close control, his ball domination and stuff. But I mean, it goes without saying, you'll lose some legs in the midfield. Because as said, Gallagher sometimes feels like a player and a half off the ball.
Which is every time you saw an opposition player with the ball, Gallagher's there suddenly. Gallagher's on to the next player. It's almost like you're having 2 or 3 of them just running around, which is great, and obviously great to see as a fan, to see someone who, especially as a lone player, putting all that effort in when you're used to seeing players that you own for years just sort of not putting as much effort in. But yeah, hopefully having a couple of players that sort of do a similar thing to what he done, and then having sort of 2 of them that maybe not use up as much energy as he would and almost act as a Gallagher, but in 2 separate forms. If that made any sense? I don't think it did, but hopefully we'll do all right.
In your world, it did, yeah.
Yeah. This isn't water.
No, you're good, mate. It feels like a real shame from a fantasy perspective that this fixture run. I mean, you really have been handed the worst of it of all, in my opinion. Arsenal, Liverpool, Villa, City, first four, which, as we found out, is the same first four as Bournemouth, just in a slightly different order. But then where their fixture list gets much better, yours kind of remains hard because then it's Brentford at home, which is fine. But then Newcastle away, United at home, the big derby with Brighton away, Chelsea at home.
Yeah,
That's taking up to the end of game week 9.
Mm.
I mean, that is a really, really tough run, actually. What's your thinking on that in terms of the difficulty that gives you non-FPL at the start of the season?
Well, it's the having. It depends what sort of mindset you go into. It's obviously you could go like, oh, if we get anything from if we get 6 or 9 points from the opening 9 games, then it's a victory. But Arsenal we beat last season. We've done well in Manchester in recent seasons. Obviously, games like Chelsea and stuff, and we've slipped up against Brentford and things. But you'll be going into those home games. We've done well at home last season. It's almost more the away form that we need to pick up on. But it's also hitting those teams cold, if that makes it. If you're hitting Liverpool up at the start of the season.
Yeah.
If you're gonna go to Old Trafford or Anfield or anything, you want to do it fairly early to hopefully hit them when they're still trying to work out what they're going to do for the season. And then there's potential for slip ups, like when we beat Man United 3-0 a couple of seasons ago. So I said, if we can get double figure points by the end of game week 9, then I think we'll be all right.
I would have said 9, like a point a game. If you can get to that run with a point a game, 9 points from that, that's banging, and then you can start building from there.
I'm sure we had this exact conversation with you either this year or the year before as well about certain fixtures, Mig, I want to say. And what I said to you then was, if you win like the couple of the easier home games, you've done this exactly that. During that period, you've got Villa, Brentford, Leeds at home.
Yeah.
If you win them 3 games, that's your 9 points, and anything else is a bonus.
Bonuses, really, yeah.
Knowing you, because you do have inconsistencies, you probably won't win all 3 of those games. But I bet you'll probably win something else that we don't think you'll win.
That's the thing. We won't win 2 of those, but we'll beat United or Arsenal.
Beat Arsenal. Go on. That'll make James happy. Just top
of the league at the start of the season. I can't argue with that. Worth Brentford.
Under the lights at Selhurst Park. Good afternoon, Arsenal fans.
Bless them.
Yeah, it certainly shouldn't cause concern. And of course, you can guess what the flip is once you get to sort of game week 10. And for those who have held the wild card that long, Leicester at home 10, and it's Leicester, Wolves, Everton, Southampton, West Ham, Nottingham Forest, then the break. And then if anyone wants a 2-week punt up from the Unlimited, it's Fulham and Bournemouth. You play all 3 promoted teams consecutively, 16, 17, 18. That's the first time you play any of them. But it does mean between 9 and 19, it's a shame that the Unlimited is there, because we'd have even more interest in Palace, because you don't play any of last season's top 6 between 9 and 19. And I'm going to guess that 10-game stretch is probably the longest that any club's probably got over the course of the season, I should imagine. So, as ever with fixtures, everyone's got to play each other twice, right? So if you've got a really tough period, it's kind of got to mean there's got to be a really easy period somewhere. It does make the Palace FPL assets, I think, far less desirable from the start. Yeah. I'm seeing hardly any in FPL drafts at the moment. How are you viewing it, Mig?
Well, in my current draft, I've got Zaha, but that's because I
know you'd say that.
Well, that's because he went in on the when you make up a team, and I haven't touched it since. But
auto select.
Yeah, exactly. But I think Plange is the only one I've seen, and that's because he's 4.5. But I can't really advocate other than just having someone like that. But then there are other options at 4.5, and there's 4.0 midfield defenders. So I can't. But I have said that in the past. Oh, I can't really go in with that one. And then Zaha's, scored 4 goals in 3 games or something ridiculous like that, and then his form's gone for the season. I can't, from an FPL perspective, I can't really advocate too many maybe. Well, I would even said Guaita as a 4.5 option, but you don't even know. I'm assuming he'll start with him because I think Butland and Johnstone have sort of niggling injuries at the moment, so I think you'll probably start with Guaita. But there's better
Sam
options at
Johnston,
4.5.
I'm fairly certain will become Crystal Palace's number one goalkeeper. Agree with you. Maybe from yesterday's friendly when this goes out, maybe it will be clear. And it probably whoever starts in gold out, you can probably expect to start game week 1. I think Johnston will get the shirt. And I think potentially down the line, he'll probably be interesting because if he's slower as well, you might find he's trickled down to sort of 4.3-ish. And the time might be right when then fixtures come out. People are wild carding around about game week 9-10, for example. Because I thought we'd end such because we don't do stats here much. I thought we'd do some for Palace. Expected goals against last season, 4th best in the league. And that's got eyes on. Considering as well, we had a new partnership with obviously Joachim Andersen and Mark Gahey.
I think in FPL, they both racked up 123, 124 points. It's not bad for a 4.5 defender.
Well, this is interesting. So I'll put this to Suj. We'll come back to your thoughts on it, Mig. But where in your mind do you envisage Palace finishing?
Somewhere between 10th and 12th.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's probably what a lot of people would say. Right at the bottom of the top
just below the
right at the top of the bottom half, one or the other. Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Yeah.
The models, when you look at the data of last season, suggest that the Palace were quite close to pushing for the top 6 and stuff. And a lot of people are looking at data stuff are suggesting that if that repeats itself, there's no reason why this time Palace might. Remember that year with, sorry to mention them, Mig, but Brighton, the XG, right? How many goals were they behind on the XG? And eventually, we had a point the following season, we laughed and went, you're beating your XG. Like, it's, at some point, we take the piss out of it and stuff, but it is a good guide. 4th best potential goals against record on XG. That's over the season. It's not over, I looked at 5 easy fixtures. Over 38 games, expected goals against. Palace were 4th best, better than Tottenham. So I think there are a lot, particularly want to look at the defensive assets. And what have we got? They're all cheap. There's no 5.0 in there. I genuinely thought that there was a chance the likes of Anderson and Gahey would have been 5.0 this year. They're not. And I'm not suggesting to anybody that start with these players because of those fixtures. But what I am saying is, if Palace show what they showed last year on the watch list, because you will be looking. And I think if the goalkeeper situation was clearer, you might get a little bit of a, say Johnston has started in that friendly, for example, you might get a movement where people start considering him because the statistics say Palace are one of the best defensive sides in this league.
Yeah, I completely agree. That's why I would have said, you can go with Guaita if you wanted to, but anyone across, probably more the right back's probably the one that's sort of up for debate. But other than that, you got Gahey, Anderson, and Mitchell, all 4.5, all bonus point magnets. We got Chris Richards, who's just signed in yesterday / a couple of days ago, which I have to be careful with not to start calling him Cliff. But he's come in. Some have suggested that he may go out and play right back because he can play on either side or centrally, or even doing 3 at the back and having.
Yeah, I've heard it mentioned possibly
and having wing backs. But I'd probably say Klein is the first choice for right back. Recently signed a new contract. Ward is the elder statesman of the team now, so I'd probably say Klein, Guy Anderson, and Mitchell. Any of those you could go for. I'd always side with maybe Guy or Mitchell because they're probably the most nailed, and Guy. But then Anderson pings a ball 40 yards and gets an assist. So,
by the way, I just had a look at understats, expected points, as in for team last season, and according to their model, you should have finished 6th.
Wow, why don't we just do it on that? That sounds good.
And yet,
play the game.
And yet,
on the score.
No, but it's interesting. Yet, other than Gallagher, and they've got it's very different replacement in Decore, but you've now got Eze fully fit. We might have new youngsters emerging, the likes of Plange, Ebioe. You got a new centre back in Chris Richards, which I think primarily they're going to compete probably in a back four. I think, which will come back to why I don't think it will be a back three. So it looks on paper stronger. Got a new goalkeeper as well, which has been an issue. Like Gator's proper sloppy on corners and stuff. So there's so much little bits that have been fixed. It almost looks, actually, if you go back to when Vieira took over, very quietly, it's almost like you put a new team together. It does, but it doesn't feel like it. The transition has been really, really smooth. And yet, despite that data, you will not catch anybody saying that they think Palace will finish like 7th or 8th. Never mind 6th. People are 9th, maybe 10th. It's natural. You're not wrong what you said, Suj, because I think the same.
Yeah.
So what? So what's right, Mig? Is it the general public or is it the data?
You football is played on grass, not on spreadsheets. But
True.
I said it in when you asked for the predictions, I put Palace at 10th, feeling ambitious. I mean, we've been 12th for the last couple of seasons, and then before that it was sort of 14th, 15th. So we're gradually making it up. But yeah, if it's turning. Last season we had a real problem with dominating games and then conceding in stoppage time or the last minute against
goals,
Brighton and Arsenal and stuff like those, where we should have been picking up 2 extra points all the time. And if we had done those, then we would have been challenging for 8th and 7th and amongst those sort of teams. So it's having that discipline to dominate the games, but then hold them out, which was a real sticking point.
If you look at the kind of transfer business, the way I'm trying to think about it, what the clubs in that tier above have done, like West Ham or Newcastle or what have you, will drop 30 or 40 million. Take the top 6 out of the equation because they'll buy superstars. But the players that we have bought in, maybe Skamaka, there's no evidence, or whoever Newcastle might drop, that Gomerish that they dropped 30 something million on, are game changers that will score that last minute goal or get you over the line in a game potentially. I don't feel like you've bought anyone at that tier or at that level, but also what your acquisitions have done have made you so much more solid than everyone below you. So your kind of transfer activity is better than everyone below you and puts you at that top of that tier. You just haven't transitioned into that next tier where, I mean, what's your most expensive signing ever? I'd be interested to know. Like, I can't ever remember you guys dropping.
Benteke, I think.
You don't drop 30 or 40. Yeah.
No, I think it was about 35 mil on Benteke.
And that was big, right? So
that's why they haven't done it since.
I think it's just that and what, like you said, it's played on grass, and every now and then you need that one or that superstar player. But the thing is, you've got players in there that can develop into that rather than needing to go and buy it, and that's, I guess, your model as well. Elise could step up this year. Eze still got another level to go, definitely. So you're developing that superstar player that will get you over the line in a game that's quite tight, and the teams above are buying that player in. And that's what keeps them above you a little bit.
That's the sort of thing. We bought Edouard last season, who obviously had a good record in Scotland, as probably hoping that he would have the immediate impact, which he did in his first game against whoever that was. But since then, he kind of
ain't done fuck all since.
Yeah, petered in and out of the team. But
6 goals, 4 assists in half a season's worth of football.
Yeah, we got 2 of them in about his first 30 seconds against us.
Yeah, it's more of a because financially we were, we've been in bad way a good couple of times and nearly went out of existence. It was more of a shift to getting these players in for more of a bargain budget sort of price and developing them, especially with the age, how old our squad was. We had to switch that up and get some cheaper younger players in and develop them. But I think it's working. Yeah, we haven't got that. We really need that sort of, you go about, you spend 40, 50 million on a proven striker, say like a someone like a Vardy or something that Leicester has, on a proven striker or someone who's going to change a game. But then you're hoping, we've already got people like Zaha and stuff who can on their day step up and take a game by a scruff of the neck and change it. But yeah, it's making that next step up in a sustainable way for a club that's hasn't been very sustainable in the past.
Fixtures, if I come back to it, that conversation we had, Mig, was this time last year. Just went back and looked at your fixtures start last year. Horrendous. Chelsea, Brentford, West Ham, Tottenham, Liverpool, Brighton, Leicester, Arsenal, Newcastle, Man City was your first 10 last year. We had the same conversation. And from those games, you won 2, of which remarkably, one was Manchester City, the last one away from home at the Etihad.
Easy
You
one,
lost 2. You lost at Stamford Bridge, you lost at Anfield, and you drew the others.
And some of those we were winning, like the Brighton one, we were winning until the final kick of the game. So,
and Arsenal's in there as well, as you said. I'm sure there was a third game as well. They weren't beating you, were they, Suj?
Who, Palace?
Yeah, no.
Mate.
Leicester, you
I
came
don't
from
remember.
2 down. Yeah, no, I think it's just a 2 from the first 10. But that's the consistency, isn't it? Over those difficult 10 fixtures last year, 1-2, lost 2, drew 6. And so then you had the 12 points from the first 10. We're saying now 9 points from 9. Actually, despite that difficult run of fixtures, that's not right. Palace are better than that now.
it should be double figures, like I said.
Big, if you get double figures, mate, you have done well.
Yeah. And that's all we can really do.
Do you know what? I read that in my mind as double figures in 18. As in,
I meant like 10.
Just more than 10.
They're going to win the league.
That's fine.
No, yeah, 10. Yeah. I mean, no, I think it's reasonable for Palace to look at those, even those difficult 9 fixtures, and be looking for sort of 1.5 per game and be looking at sort of 13. 13 would be great. Get there. It's 4 wins, 4 draws, 4 wins, a draw, and 4 defeats. So it would have the same kind of balance as the run last year. It's not impossible, particularly if, say, you did beat Arsenal again opening day. Beat Arsenal, Villa, Brentford, and what was the other home game I said?
To Leeds.
Yeah.
Leeds. Well, Leeds is game 10. Then yeah, I mean that's 12 points there, isn't it?
Yeah. That's all you got to do. It's easy when you say it like that, you know.
Exactly.
It is, but
don't see the problem.
But football's not played. Football's played on grass.
It's not played on a podcast. No.
Why are we not starting with Wilfried Zaha? I don't think I've seen him. I know he's in teams, but I don't think I've seen him in a single one on Twitter.
7.2% ownership. That's Mig's.
It's the auto teams.
It's
Mig's 100 auto teams that he's got to set up.
Yeah. Mig 1, Mig 2. It's a similar thing. It's starting with the fixtures. I mean, moving. He's in that sort of price point where there's a few options at 7, but then you just have to go 1 mil up and you're in amongst the Sakas and the likes, and then you're dropping down this, and there's bargains at 6.5 and there's even bargains at 5.5. So it's in the it's comparing him to, do I spend the extra mil to get that 8.0 defender midfielder, or do I sort of save a few pennies and go for a Neto or someone, or a
Rashford,
Bruno,
Martinelli, whatever.
Yeah. And to save that 0.5 and put that somewhere else to help me get Haaland or to up a 4.5 defender. If he had better fixtures, then yeah, I would certainly argue it for it.
Well, for me, and I think for you, James, as well, when you've owned him, has always been targeting a certain run.
Yeah.
So if you look at his FPL history for the last 6-7 years, it's okay, 120, 130, 140, 130, 120. It's consistent throughout that whole 6 or 7 period. But then I look at it, and if I want consistency, I'll pay $500,000 less, get James Ward-Prowse in, and that's 140, 150, 140, 150 all the way through. And I don't know, this is just an absolute, it feels like, more than I've got any evidence of, but it feels like Wilf's points always come in stints of 3 or 4 games where he does particularly well, and then there's just nothingness for ages.
It's never when I own him, I can assure you
exactly
of that. Which maybe means, this is the point, which maybe means, like, you look at that run from 10, you go, oh yeah, I could have Wilfried Zaha to unlimited. Oh yeah, I can have Wilfried Zaha for the first 2 afterwards and then make another decision possibly. But actually, maybe it's just that. Maybe it's just go, he's consistent. He's the talisman. He's scoring any game. Against the better opposition, he's arguably got a little bit more space in terms of on the counter attack and running in behind. He's a player who needs that in terms of, I think, his returns. Like, he can face anyone up on a wide area and beat them 1-on-1. We know that. But I think for actual returns, he obviously needs some space and stuff. So maybe we should still consider him. Maybe he's the sort of player that we should just look at and go, sorry, actually, I keep buying this idiot when he has good fixtures and I never get the returns. And yet I look at his 150 points and go, it's pretty good, that, isn't it? It's interesting. Comparing with the other sevens, there are only 5 players. 7. One I think we'd definitely rule out is Bernardo Silva, because at the moment, unless something changed over the weekend, looks like he's probably going to play kind of alongside Rodri. So you're not paying 7 million for that. So you got Grealish, Barnes, Coutinho, Zaha. I think they've probably all got something in common. It's pissing off FPL managers. But
that's why they've all been put at that.
But interestingly, all 4 of them have that explosive nature to them and stuff.
Yeah.
It's a nice little bracket, actually, then, 4 players. Because what I would say is if you go with any, I would bet almost throughout the season that one of them at various points will look like a good option.
Yeah.
I mean, invariably, one will drop 0.5 and one will probably go up 0.5, I guess. But yeah, they're an interesting group, those 4.
Yeah, you could almost spend like the whole season just have like one spot on your team and just sort of rotate around those. I mean, obviously, Barnes has been a little bit of a favourite, non-favourite for FPL for the last couple of seasons when he's explosive. Grealish had the hype going into last season and then didn't really do anything at all. But then, yeah, Zaha he's on pens as long as Milivojevic isn't on the pitch, which I can't imagine he'll be on the pitch that much this season. So he's got the penalty factor now. Against the bigger teams, he gets more spaces, maybe wins more pens against. But then he can also, helpfully, if he's got players like Eze and stuff playing through the central, and Elise when he's fit. I mean, I think Elise I saw a graphic that he had the best X involvement for goal chances, whatever that, big chances created. He had the best X for that, ahead of the likes of De Bruyne and stuff, which was always surprising per 90 minutes. But he's injured, so that doesn't help. But yeah, I of those 4 players, I probably would side with a Zaha. I don't know if that's bias from me, but it's only really Grealish. He's in that Manchester City midfield. You don't really know which one they're going to go with. Is he going to go with him? Is he going to go with Foden? Obviously, Sterling's not there anymore, but is he going to stick with Haaland? So they had done quite well in the preseason. Coutinho had flashes, but then he dropped off quite severely at the end of the season. And Barnes is sort of in and out as much as Zaha is. So I don't think you could really argue against Zaha compared to those 4.
I think they would all be reasonable choices. To be honest, I said this a lot this week. I feel like if anyone wants to start seeing Wilfried Zaha, do. However, I will throw one stat in, which is because I happen to be sitting on understat and looking at Crystal Palace players. He did very much overperform his expected goals last year. He got 14 league goals. Understat having for the season at around about just under 11.
What impact does penalties have on that, though, James?
Well, he took them last year anyway, didn't he, Mig?
No, so did he miss any? Did he miss a couple?
He missed at Norwich, didn't he?
Yeah, he had a.
Don't you remember when he nearly fell over, didn't he?
Yeah. So I don't know if that affects it particularly. Of those that we've talked about, just because of the penalties, I think he's the best. Like all else being equal in terms of fixtures and stuff, I'd have him over the others. If I had to keep him for 10, 12 weeks.
Oh no, it's too long. He'd kill you. That's the problem. Every time I get him, I go, I've got Wilfried Zaha for 8 weeks. And by the time I've got to like game 7, it's like, I mean, there wasn't any hair in the first place, but you know what I mean, right? That bloody
You went so grey last season.
It's like you honestly, only Wilfried Zaha for 8 weeks. You get to like week 7 and you stop thinking about what your transfer is going to be for game week 8. You just want it to be over.
Just put that deadline, boom, it's gone.
Yeah, mate. No, listen, he's a super player. He does give us the ump because he gives himself the ump, and we don't know why he lets shit bother him so much on a football pitch. But he's a super talent, and I think those 4 7.0 options are all potentially quite interesting. Personally, my favourite from that. If I'd start with one, I'd probably Grealish personally. Punt it. City.
That's the thing. That's the thing with especially with City's fixtures as they are. If you're gonna punt on someone, you might as well punt on the big team.
I do think it's worth saying. I think that 7.0 area is going to generally stay quite loose. I mean, we haven't got 100% ownership across those 4 players, right? Nowhere near. And Coutinho's been on the slide, I think, hasn't it, Suj? And the others don't have huge amounts. I would guess, without looking, Barnes, Zaha, and Grealish's ownership is probably all quite similar. So you probably only got 2/5 of the game are actually at that price point. Something to be aware of. I think most people need to come down a bit cheaper based on the rest of their structure. I'm kind of struggling potentially to have a 7 in.
Yeah, you're kind of looking at a premium, maybe 2 premiums, and then an 8 at a stretch, and then you're down in the 5s and the 4s. You'd have to sort of pick a 7 mil player over a Diaz or a Saka or something like that. And
James, Coutinho is actually streets ahead of the others, mate.
I know he's got a lot more at the moment, about 25 or something.
No, he's a lot less now. He's at 18.7.
Oh yeah, that's coming down.
But then you got Bernardo at 8, Grealish at about 7. All the others are between 5 and 8. Grealish, Bernardo.
That's Bernardo
Zaha,
got more
Barnes,
ownership than Grealish.
Historical, or the same bot that made mixed teams.
He's probably in my team.
True. Why am I questioning this exactly?
Yeah, but Bernardo's got nearly double, but Coutinho's got way more than all of them at the moment. But then a lot of people might be playing the first two game weeks and thinking, oh, wild card, or he's my 4 guy to get someone else in, and just looking at the first couple of fixtures, really.
That's the sort of thing. It really depends on when you're wildcarding, because we've pretty much got 3 wildcards this season. So if you're thinking, I might as well attack the first 3 or 4 game weeks, and if I think Coutinho is going to smash them out when Zaha is playing teams like Liverpool and Arsenal, I'll just attack that wild card, and then it's just another 8 game weeks until I get another wild card, pretty much.
It's exactly that. And I think it's worth saying last year's data is last year's data, to kind of add to the perception of what Palace might be this year. The data will change again, right? If it landed exactly the same, every chance you would finish 6th, but it won't. You might have similar stats and finish 14th. I don't know, Mig, but a new season will have different stats for certain. I think, you look at that first 4 with Liverpool away and City away, as much as you can look at Zaha and say, actually, I'm not so bothered about the fixtures. It still makes him a really tough call over even just those at the same price point. Never mind, I can save $1 million on Martinelli and spend $1 million somewhere else, for example. And Arsenal got great fixtures, except for game week 1, Mig.
Exactly.
Very surprised to put a big local derby like that on in game week 1. That's really unusual, actually. Mig, Nathan Ferguson. You're right, there, Nathan.
I'm just thinking about whether or not I can buy you a new joke book or a new insult book or something. If any listeners out there have got more new Arsenal insults for James, I don't mind the Arsenal insults, just getting bored of the same ones every bloody week.
Nathan Ferguson is alive, Mig.
He is.
Are we going to see him?
He was the other sort of budget one, along with Ebiowe, that I was kind of he's not going to start the season, but if he gets fit, then maybe
he gets fit. He's been trying for 2 years, the poor kid.
Bless him. I know.
In fact, 2.5.
He's trying, but if he stays fit, then he may force his way into that right back spot. Obviously, he's younger than the other 2 guys. He was a Hodgson signing, but then how much you can really read into that with Vieira, because he hasn't exactly gone out and bought another right back unless Chris Richards plays there. So he after a few weeks, if he stays fit, maybe after Christmas, he may force his way into being right back. And if people have gone with him early doors, he may be 3 point something by then. I don't think they will, with the likes of Nico Williams and stuff, where you think.
Yeah, but as said, when the ownership's low, he won't take many to. If anybody does start there, I don't know how to get. What are they going to do? Look at his previous history and see 1 point over the last 2 years or something. I don't see how they're going to do that. It drove me potty when they put him up to 4.5 last year, because he was 4.0 2 years ago.
Yeah,
it was the big debate, wasn't it? Him versus Mitchell, I think, wasn't it? If I remember correct at the time.
Yeah.
I think we tipped up Ferguson. Didn't we?
We thought he's going to be coming in because we had
Yeah.
Van Arnholt was probably ahead of Mitchell at the time. We were
That's
thinking,
right.
oh, Ferguson's going to be nailed, and then he got pegged, and
Yeah.
Mitchell
And
played the first
he
game,
missed,
and
he
like,
missed
yeah,
the whole
he's a
season. They put him up to 4.5, and I had a real whinge about it. I was like, well, that's so cheeky. So fair game. They've put him back to 4.0. No, he's not going to start the season. I think just to clarify my point on, I don't think it will be a back three with the sign of Chris Richards, which obviously gives real competition to the pairing of Anderson and Gahey. I'd look at it and think if any of them were missing, Vieira wouldn't be comfortable playing a back three. So I think unless there was a fourth centre back that came in, they probably don't do it. Plus, I would make the case at the moment to say a lot of love for Tyreek Mitchell, really like him as well. But I think he's becoming a really good defensive fullback.
Yeah.
I don't envisage him as a wing back, for example. Unless he was to use maybe Mitchell as left-sided centre back. It's not impossible, but then we're having this argument because Richards has come in. So it doesn't really make sense. I wouldn't say any of the current right backs. Klein would have been a great wing back in his Liverpool days or Southampton days, not now. So I don't think the setup's particularly there at the moment for a back three, unless he wants to use, perhaps when Elise's fitter, you could use him as an offensive wing back, for example, and use Mitchell on the other side, and then you tuck it round so it becomes like a back four with the ball or without the ball, for example. But I don't think it's set up for a back three personally at the moment. I think you're a back four team.
Yeah, I think we got a fourth centre back, but it's James Tompkins, who probably hasn't played in a back three for the last decade. So it'll be a back four.
He's not a 4.0 option either.
No.
Just shout out. The only one I'd say to keep an eye on, but you won't because of the fixtures, is if Jeff Schlupp stays in the team, he's an interesting little 5.0 because he does chip in.
Yeah.
But again, I wouldn't start with him. Who do you think, Mig, to final question, will start up front from the three forwards plus Luke Plange?
I've always kind of sided with Edouard, but I have a sneaky feeling he'll start Mateta. I think Benteke's third choice. I think it's between Edouard and Mateta, but I think he'll side with Mateta.
Benteke, if he's still at Palace in April, get your triple captaincy out. New contract incoming, I think.
Yeah.
Seems to happen all the time, doesn't it?
He's ready to go. Come the springtime, clocks go forward, and so does Benteke.
So so to close it, we'll go around the room. Where do we think now that Palace will finish? Mig.
10th.
Serge.
12th.
It didn't change at all. I'm going to go 11th, which I still think's like acceptable. It's just getting tougher with the teams around and stuff, actually.
Yeah.
And I there is also this kind of psychological top half barrier thing that keeps happening to Palace as well, and it shouldn't do. But certainly consolidating. By the way, just quickly off the field, they're trying to work on redesign plans for the new main stand and stuff, which is really important to the future of the football club, because otherwise you got a massive limitation on what you're doing at the moment until something's done with that. And you've been stable long enough now
as well. Every time you need to go away there,
he's going
to shit list.
I fucking hate that half a weight stand. Honestly, it's fucking shithole.
We know.
You're pissing like Portaboo.
Yeah. That's what they shout out to.
Portakabin Lou's outside of the outside. The only good thing is because it's outside, you can have a smoke and that. It's not a problem. I don't know how that half a weight stand passes health and safety, mate. There's no room to do shit in there, mate. If a fire went off, end of days, mate. I'm not happy about it.
Well,
you can't see shit.
I saw Simon Jordan saying about it, and he was like, "Well, that was the point. We don't want away fans to come and enjoy their experience. They want it to be a terrible experience for them." I was like, "Yeah, but sanitation as well." You know?
When Steve Parish said, because again, this is the opposite end to where the away fans are. He said, we want to build this new standard. We want to host like games at like 2030 World Cup, 2028 Euros. I'm fun over laughing, mate. So, mate, if someone properly comes down and have a look at this, they'll close your fucking stadium rather than give you World Cup games, mate. All right. Brilliant. Good job, Mig. That's correspondent week, Suj.
That is it. Mig, just give the listeners a shout out to your Twitter handle so that they can follow you if they want to know more stuff about Eagles.
It's at Migtavius, Migtavius. And if you want to join a differential league, DM me.
Do it. Slide into Mig's DMs. He loves a bit of that as well.
Mixed differential. Are you under 5% ownership?
No, it's 10% now. It's far easier to keep track of.
Yeah, I mean, we do the same. Yeah, we tried under 5. It's impossible, mate.
It's just there's no one there.
Under 10. Yeah, good fun. That get on Mig's leg. Right, speeches, I guess, before we finish up. Thank you to all the correspondents. And Mig, sorry, you're last. You've got to listen to this shit a little bit.
I'm happy to be here.
The correspondents are obviously always happy to share their insights and their opinions. They are not ITKs because they said something might happen. Doesn't mean that it will, and it doesn't mean you should do what they say either. Because there will be someone who said, "I didn't do this because correspondent X said." Like when Plange scores hat-trick next week, Mig, you're in the gutter, aren't you, mate? But
I'll just say we're not experts, we're fans.
We're definitely not experts, yes. We're fans, exactly that. And it's really important. It's brilliant insight to get the fan opinion from the 20 guys. I thank you again all and wish you all the best of luck for the rest of the season. COTC, as I said, returns on August the 11th. That'll be every Thursday normally. There will be a couple of Tuesday ones as well during the season. That'll be Chelsea Tottenham with Gary Mantle and Ricky Saunders. Suj, have we got anything else to plug? Our main podcast tomorrow, we will cover things that have changed from the guys' opinions, i.e., we all know who played for Palace on Saturday, which unfortunately, because we all have normal lives and wanted to take the weekend off, we're pre-recording this. Sorry, bit selfish, not selfish, bothered, not bothered. So we'll cover that sort of stuff off on Monday. We'll have a run through.
Yeah, I don't think there is anything else. Of course, if you want to go on.
If you're watching the YouTube premiere, get it on BBC One and watch the girls, yeah? Kind of girls?
Yes.
Good lionesses. If it's 5 p.m. on Sunday when you listen to this, because that's what we've timed it for, then the Lionesses are on.
Kicking off now.
Well done to you, mate, for all the edits and getting them all out on time, barring any technical issues.
Shout
and
out
Nico in the background as
yeah,
well,
man.
as smashing out the micros and the little videos.
Can
as
I
well.
just
He's
say,
sitting here, just give me a thumbs up. So
I don't know how I did last year. I did all the video edits. I don't know how I did it.
Yeah, it's madness.
I really don't know how I did that on top. I'm shattered.
Talking for 20 hours with fans just about football seems quite easy. When you do it in a week, it is very, very intense. So well done to all involved. We'll be back at you next week with a bit more of a sane schedule of content. If you want to come and join our Patreon community on Slack and what have you, patreon.com/Planet FPL. From the basic tier, you get access to our Slack. It's such a good community.
That's the first time this week you've heard it plugged. Gasco's respect for our people.
Indeed.
The correspondence.
Intermediate and advanced, you obviously get access to additional podcasts and additional content as well.
600 now,
I'm 600 of them, but 600 friends, we'd call them, because they're all such good people and they'll help anybody.
Oh, there's a few wankers
also,
in there as well.
They give you money, so it's fine.
No,
there's a mute button. It's all good. So we'd love to come and have you there over the course of this season as we go into season 6 of Planet FPL. But other than that, stay safe. Enjoy the weekend. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, correspondents. Remember, everyone, play it your way. Good luck for the season. Cue music, please. Bad child.